Little Town Hero was a game that I purchased on Switch when it came out in 2019, and it's been sitting in my backlog for years. The game looked very charming at the time. It is very charming, and it's made by Game Freak. So I thought that this was going to be a very good game, not necessarily an excellent game, when I bought it. And it was $25 when I did buy it, and it's an okay game. Now, the story does start out with you as the main character. You get to pick the name of the character. I stuck with preloaded name of Axe, and this plot point of it is that he wants to leave this town. This is a town he grew up in. He doesn't know anything outside of the town, so that's why he wants to see what else is out there for him. And as you start to talk to other characters in the game, monsters appear. So you start fighting the monsters, and you want to figure out why. The game shifts from wanting to leave the town to wanting to see possibly what's outside of the town, so you want to climb this tower, and the way to do that is through a yearly tradition they call the gifting rite. The gifting rite is where boys try to give a gift to a girl that they want to pursue or like or have a crush on, so then if the girl accepts it, then they get to be able to go on top of the tower. And that's the driving motivation then for my character named Axe to go up to the tower and see what else is out there. And so the game really starts to go back and forth between seeing if you can woo a girl and fighting monsters. And those start to go hand in hand in the story. And the battle system for this game is very unique, and there's a lot of moving parts to it, and it's very confusing. So first off, you have your ideas for attacks. So each battle starts with the ideas, and they have two forms, Izzets and Dazzets. The Izzets you have to change into Dazzets by spending your POW points. Each battle, you start out with 3 POW points, and Izzets range from anywhere from 1 to 6 POW points to turn into Dazzets. And then also, each Izzet is one of 3 colors, red, yellow, or blue. Red is your stronger attacks, yellow is more defensive with lower attacks, and blue are more support-based. I say more support-based just because there are a few blue Dazzets, like Firecracker, that'll do 3 damage to one of your enemy's Dazzets. After each turn, you gain 1/3 of a POW point until you gain a maximum of 6 POW points. So when you start your turn, you can turn as many Izzets into Dazzets, but once you've used a Dazzet, then the enemy gets to attack. And you can build up, you can save your POW points to turn Izzets into Dazzets during your next turn, or you can spend them all at once. It's kind of confusing, right? Because it gets even more confusing here. So then when you do damage, so first off, you have to break your enemy's Dazzets to be able to hit their guts and heart. Guts protect the heart, and both enemy and character have 3 hearts. I've seen that some enemies have like 6 guts, and I think towards the end they each had 9. Every time you break a heart, the guts replenish. And every time, no matter how strong your attack is, if there's 3 hearts even, and you have an attack that does 5 damage, it's only going to hit 1 heart. So you can't hit multiple hearts at once. And you can also use certain blue Dazzets to deal damage to the hearts or guts of the enemy. And there is a difficulty spike, and it's not like the enemies get stronger. It's that they have passive abilities on their Dazzets that I couldn't understand for most of the time if they're actually going to do that passive ability or not. And there was at least 2 battles that I remember. There was a few battles that I remember where I had 3 hearts and however many guts, probably like 5 or 6, and the enemy had 1 heart and a full set of guts. And after just a few turns, because of those passive abilities that the enemy has that the player doesn't get, we were pretty much even on health. And that's what I mean by that difficulty spike, is that it's not even the game gets challenging, but I feel like the game becomes cheap in that sense to make it feel difficult, when really it just seems like it's a cheap move overall for the enemies. And those passive abilities, you can see them on the bottom right. It'll give you a little blurb of what they're going to do, or you can even click down on the right joystick and it'll give you details of what that passive ability is going to be. But sometimes when I clicked on it, it never actually showed what it would be, or it would show that it's going to deal 3 damage to my guts, and then when I would break the Dazit, or the enemy would attack with that Dazit, nothing happened. So I don't know if that was a bug that needed to be fixed and never was, or maybe it was showing for the previous turn and it never happened, but that's something I did encounter with this game. Another part of the battle system is BP. I believe it stands for brain points, which those are ideas in your headspace. The ideas you can swap, that'll cost brain points, BP, or you can actually revive your ideas for more BP. From what I gathered, the maximum BP is 6, and to at least revive all your ideas, starts out with 2 BP and then goes to 4 and then 6. There was a few times where I did swap ideas, Izzets around ideas. They're both kind of the same thing to me, but when you use all the attacks in your carousel, so Dazits, and then they go away, usually those ideas come back in the form of Izzets. So I didn't really swap those out. Mainly I used the BP to revive ideas when I was low with only 1 or 2 Izzets left. The last part about the battle system that I think I need to mention, I think I've covered everything else, is moving. At the end of your turn, when all your Izzets and Dazits are used, and same with the enemies, then you get a move on a map. It's kind of like Mario Party in a way, where you get to go anywhere from 1 to 4 spaces. It's not a dice, it's kind of like a roulette wheel, and you just press A and it randomly selects it. There are certain Dazits, red and yellow, that give you free mobility, which really helps a lot because on the map there are certain items you get to engage with or characters that really help boost yourself in battle. I know that there's chicken. That sounds weird, but you get to throw it at the enemy, and that actually gets rid of all those passive abilities and actually does damage to the enemy's guts. There's Pasmina. I remember that she was really helpful because she revives all ideas in headspace as well as give you 3 guts. She replenishes 3 guts to you. I know that I've talked about the battle system a lot and I went into great detail about it, but this game really makes you utilize all aspects of it. It really did take me a few chapters to understand it, and I do think that there are positives to it, such as having to use the map and strategize which Dazits you'll unlock and use in your turn, but I feel like it was overly complex. One thing that I would change if I could is replacing BP for really a cooldown system, because earning BP felt like it felt too difficult, and having a cooldown system I think would help players be able to use their ideas more and not feel like they were stuck or just going to get demolished by the enemies. I think that having those passive abilities for the enemies was really just unfair. I don't think that there was really a difficulty spike, as more just here's attacks that we're going to use to really do more damage to the player. I feel like having maybe stronger attacks would have helped really balance that out, but I don't think that if there is ever a sequel to this game, having those passive abilities come back, and if they do, I think limiting those would be much more balanced. The game does offer a skill tree, and it's very nice and simple, so I did appreciate that, and you gain Eureka points after every fight, and also doing side quests. Not every side quest does provide Eureka points, and I didn't see any rhyme or reason how many Eureka points you gained. There was one fight where I gained 8 of them, but typically I would receive 1 or 2 Eureka points. The game doesn't have much variety to the music, which I think is fine because it all takes place in one town, and I really didn't notice a variation between the music at all. There was the battle music and the town music, and that was about it. Characters that you do meet in this game are charming, and for the most part, they really felt like they had a purpose for the story, and it wasn't just a character you met just to continue one little plot point. So I did appreciate everybody having a purpose, and it was a worthwhile purpose. There's one part of the map in this game that I noticed seemed to be scrapped. I don't know if they wanted to use it or if this was just part of the map, but there's a part underneath the mines that it looks like you can go to, but it's blocked off. I did not 100% this game, so I don't know if maybe that was a side quest or if this is just an inaccessible part to the game. Speaking of side quests, I did not do all of the side quests in this game, but there's one that I did where you fight a possessed doll. This actually made me stop wanting to do all the side quests because that fight took me 2 hours. And I think completing the whole game took me around 20 hours. And that really made me want to focus on just the main story instead of completing any side quests because I didn't want to do optional fights that were 2 more hours possibly. Little Town Hero did have a lot of charm to it, but I feel like the battle system really brought it down. It was overly complex, and I think that really just making it more simple would have done wonders for this game. I do see the potential in the battle system, but really it's just bringing it down, narrowing down what options are needed and required compared to having so many moving parts to it. And really that does bring that experience down for me, having that overly complex battle system. And the end of the game really was a dud to me, just because this is going to be spoilers, so if you don't want to spoil the game here, go ahead and hit pause. But the character does end up getting to the top of the tower and sharing a moment with the girl he chooses, which is Pasmina, and he decides that he wants to stay in the town. I think that's the indication that he fell in love, but he has no desire when he gets to the top of the tower to look and see if there is anything else he sees, another town or anything at all. And the camera doesn't even do a pan to show anything outside of this town. You get to see the environment in the background, but it's really just hills and trees, so you don't really get to explore beyond the town, which I was hoping that, we would get a little glimpse of a village or something, or the main character showing, whoa, that's something I want to do, to hint at a sequel, but it just leaves off as, hey, I'm content here, even though that's his whole desire to leave the town as the driving force to this story. Overall, I'm glad I beat this game, so I can say that I've beat it, but this isn't a game that I'm going to go back to. I think this is really a one and done game for me. When I reflect on it, I think of the battle system and the potential of it, but it wasn't executed well. So I think that this game really could have been better with that battle system, but it just wasn't there. There was too much moving pieces to it, and I don't know if maybe Game Freak had a time crunch and they just rushed this game out, or if they really thought that the battle system was good on its own without needing any fine-tuning. So really, if somebody asks me about this game, I'm not going to have much positive to say. I'm going to say that it's a game, and that's about it. Thank you for being here. If you made it to the end of this video, please like and subscribe. Until next time, take care.